ขอต้อนรับท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านกลับเข้าสู่บรรยากาศของงานเสวนาครบรอบ 8 ปีข้อกำหนดกรุงเทพในช่วงบ่ายนะคะ
ครับสำหรับช่วงบ่ายนี้นะครับเราจะเริ่มต้นด้วย Special Talk นะครับอีกหัวข้อหนึ่งนั่นก็คือหัวข้อนะครับผลกระทบของการใช้โทษจำคุกและการขับเคลื่อนข้อกำหนดกรุงเทพนะครับนอกเหนือบริบทเรือนจำโดยผู้เชี่ยวชาญจากต่างประเทศที่ทำงานวิจัยร่วมกับสถาบันนะครับมาเป็นระยะเวลายาวนานทีเดียวนะครับดร. บาบาร่า โอเวนครับ
Now we're going to move on to the besides prison topic. The next talk is on the impact of imprisonment and the implementation of the Bangkok rules outside the prison context, and by a professor, a prison sociologist, and a long-time good friend of TIJ. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Barbara Owen.
Well, it's a great honor to be up here. I'm going to try not to be blinded by these chandeliers. I wanted to talk to you today about my 25-year experience in working in women's prisons. And I want to share with you some of the thinking that I've come to lately in thinking about the purpose of prisons and what other alternatives we might have. I've worked in prisons for a very, very long time. I did research in California, then I started doing research in other Western states within the United States. And then, as Dr. Kitty Pong told us this morning, I was very humbled and grateful to be invited as part of the early team that worked on the Bangkok rules. I don't know if you can see my pin, but it's an Inspire pin, and it's one of my most favorite pieces of jewelry because it reminds me not only of my early days in working here in Bangkok, but it reminds us what Her Royal Highness has directed us, and that is to be inspired. And so in the United States, I had a very, very long-term project. I worked for 10 years on one project. That's probably where I got this gray hair. And one of the things that I concluded or discovered in this project is something that kind of now I say, why didn't I know that before? Because it's so obvious. And this is what I discovered. When we look at the problems within the prison, when we look at the problems in women's prison in terms of their lack of access to health care, in terms of their lack of access to education, in terms of their problems with keeping contact with their families and their children, all the different kinds of things that those of you who work in the correctional environment day by day understand, I came to a conclusion, and it was one of those aha moments. I came to understand, and what I want to talk to you a little bit about today here is the problems in the prison are caused by the same pathway problems that brings women to prison. And those problems have one simple word, and that word is inequality. When we think about women's vulnerabilities to domestic and other forms of interpersonal violence, when we think about women's vulnerabilities in terms of lack of education or lack of vocational training or lack of income, it all swirls around that same idea. When we open our eyes to gendered inequality in society, just like my good friend Dr. Jeffries in the audience has discovered, women have very specific pathways to prison, and these pathways are in fact paved by gendered inequality of all sorts. One of the fancy words we use in the United States is intersectional inequalities, and all that means is the ways in which women's status in terms of gender, in terms of cultural or language group, in terms of social economic class, all the reasons we find for thinking less than about people or what they often say in Australia, otherizing people. To me, it all boils down to the notion that women's pathways are shaped by inequality. When we turn our attention to the problems in the prison, again, I've been studying this for 25 years and I was kind of slow in grasping this. The problem in the prison is also shaped by inequality within the prison. Some prisoners have skills, education, good mental or physical health that allows them to take advantage of the programs that are in their institution. Other prisoners may have pasts shaped by personal violence, both when they were girls, both when they were adults. Some of this violence came from their families. Some of this violence came from their communities. When we look at the kinds of struggles that prison staff have in managing and hopefully rehabilitating in women in prison, again, it comes down to the form of inequality within the prison. The largest or the simplest argument is to look at the inequalities between programs and services in men's prisons and make a direct comparison to programs and services in women's prison. But in my view, this inequality goes deeper. We talk about gender stigmatization in the larger society. It certainly occurs in the prison as well. So when we think about the ways in which this inequality paves women's pathways to prison, I've also thought a lot about how this inequality shapes their pathways within prison. So I've done a lot of thinking about that, but again, kind of slow to come to this conclusion. What I realized is what the Bangkok Rules and other human rights instruments, what the work of the earlier panelist lands on, is the idea of creating pathways away from prison. And the Bangkok Rules and other human rights instruments give us firm and direct guidance for the ways in which we can create effective interventions in the causes and the context that led women to prison. And I think we're pretty good at that, particularly the model prison, and I was so excited to see the model prison staff get an award. But as we look in the Bangkok Rules, as we dig more deeper in the Bangkok Rules, I've started to think of the role of non-custodial measures. And so I want to talk a little bit about changing our language instead of reintegration. Let's cross out that RE and let's think about integration. What can we do in both pre-conviction measures? What can we do in post-custodial measures? What can we do in the communities to integrate the women into the community without taking them out of the community in the first place? And that's the guidance we're given by the non-custodial measure aspect of the Bangkok Rules. The word cloud I have up here kind of represents my brainstorming in some of these issues, so you can see how my brain works sometimes, not always very well. But when you look at the center, when we look at the Bangkok Rules, again, it gives us very specific guidance, very specific encouragement, and very specific reinforcement to think about the ways we can use community resources. In this region, you talk about social investment, you talk about other forms of social activity, just as many of our panelists talked about. But what I want to suggest to you in the 11 minutes and 43 seconds I have left with you is I want to talk to you a little bit about what I call the investment model of rehabilitation. The investment model of rehabilitation causes us to think, ask us to think about how is it we can invest in women in the community. How is it we can invest in families in the community? And think about the ways in which not only it counters the gendered and other forms of discrimination and inequality that women face, but think about the damage that gender inequality does to communities in general. I'm an old hippie. We used to talk like this back in the 70s, but one of the things we used to say is women hold up half the world. And so if we can think about the ways in which we can use our public safety, our criminal justice dollars, in investing in women, in investing in families before they go to prison, and particularly after they come to prison, I think we'll have a model that, quite frankly, to use the language of the investment bankers, gives us a return on our investment. It's not only a return on our investment for the individual women we have, but when you help women, you help children, you help the community. I've worked with a lot of different prisons in the United States, and again, for a lot of time. And very often at meetings, I'll sit around tables, and I just want to say, what is the point? What is the point for taking the most vulnerable members of our society? What is the point of removing women from community? Again, they hold up half the sky. What is the point of separating women from their children or women from their families? And I just have to say, while it's true that 80% of the women in prison are mothers, that means 20% are not. We have to think about the ways in which that we're divesting in communities by removing women from communities to put them in prisons that may or may not be very good for them. When I think about the point of prison, when I think about what we're getting for our money, I have to borrow a quote from one of my friends who's really got me thinking about non-custodial measures. And she says, for so long we have invested in the failure of prison. It's time to invest in the promise of non-custodial measures. And my word cloud here shows concepts and examples of non-custodial measures, whether they're pre-incarceration or post-incarceration, that we have real facts, we have real data that shows treating women in non-custodial settings, treating women either through intensive interventions that are supported by graduated sanctions, treating women in day reporting centers, as we call them in the United States, or for some women, they might need some form of residential treatment. The data is clear. We know that TIJ is a member of the Program Network Institutes of the United Nations. Well, our Program Network Institute in the United States is called National Institute of Justice, which I'm also grateful for. They funded a lot of my research. But NIJ did a very rigorous study several years ago and said, it's just a fact. Non-custodial measures cost less, do less damage to women, and allow women to remain in the community and, again, hold up half the sky. So when we think about the point of prison, and again, I respect everybody who works day to day in the prison. My very first book was on correctional officers. Sometimes I think, what kind of nerve did I have? I showed up at San Quentin one day and said, hey, I want to study your correctional officers. So there I was, 22, 23 years old, hanging around with the correctional officers. So I have an enormous respect for correctional officers. And I know also from other research that's been done by many of my friends in the United States that very often the correctional officer is the most important person in a woman's life. And so think about that somebody who is paid, somebody who has a job duty to take care of you is the most important person in your life. When we talk about non-custodial measures, one of the key principles is drawn from both the principles in the Bangkok Rules and in the Mandela Rules. And of course, that's the principle of non-discrimination. But that principle doesn't mean we treat women and men the same. That principle means we treat people fairly. We treat people equitably. So when we think about non-custodial measures, we have quite a bit of research that shows when you intervene in women's pathways to prisons, many of these pathways that are shaped by violence in their home, as I said, violence in their community, unequal access to education, unequal access to jobs, unequal access to justice, we need to think about the ways in which this investment model can counter these inequalities. We need to think about the ways in which these models help us retain women in the community, again, so they can hold up half the sky. One particular model that I'm working with in California right now is intensive case management for women. We're designing a system through which their probation officer comes to the prison 6 months before their release and says, what do you need? Do you need safe housing? Do you need drug treatment? Do you need employment support? And the data is very, very clear. Again, supported by rigorous research done by a P&I that shows that those, what we call a warm handoff type of programs, increases program retention and increases program success. So when we think about the investment model, again, the word cloud gives you some ideas here. It allows us to go back to the question, what is the point of prison? We continue to invest in the failure of prison. In the United States, the recidivism rate is about 65% within 2 years. So we need to think about exactly where we're putting our money. So as I give you just some basic ideas about the investment model, I just want to conclude with these thoughts. For so many years, we've looked at women prisoners as a problem. We've looked at women's prisoners in terms of their deficits. And the research clearly shows if we look at non-custodial measures from the strength perspective, from the point of view that these women have much to offer to society, and our colleague who was talking about the SHE program, the other folks who were talking about if you give inmates a chance, and this is true for men and women too, that not only does the individual benefit, but the community benefits it all. I also want to suggest to you that, that the time is right for attention to non-custodial measures. TIJ, through their support globally, their very successful support of the Bangkok Rules, has really shown the way of how we can invest in our staff and invest in these custodial models to bring human rights and equally important human dignity to the prison. But the Bangkok Rules also tell us to start thinking about these non-custodial measures. And so this is my question of you. This is my charge to you. All of you, whatever your duty is, whether you're a correctional officer, whether you're a private citizen, whether you own a company, whatever pathways you all travel to sit in this room, to think about the ways in which non-custodial measures not only integrate women in society, but invest in the future. For too long, we've invested in prisons that focus on past behavior, and I ask you to think about the ways that we can invest in the future through these community models that we have clear evidence that work. One example was research that was done in Kenya that showed that local programs that training their staff in gender-sensitive issues, providing treatment and employment support, increased positive outcomes many-fold. Another study in the United States compared a province that used gender-sensitive approaches as compared to traditional approaches, which usually means male-based approaches, and they found out that the women in the gender-responsive environments did much, much better than those who were in the so-called gender-neutral ones. With my 31 seconds left, I love the big clock because I can't see that far anyway, I'm going to leave you with a quote that I heard from one of our alumni from the Bangkok Rules training. She said, when you invest in women, you invest in children, and you invest in the future. So thank you for investing in me, and thank you for listening to me.
Wow. Can you please get a long round of applause for the brilliant Barbara Owen? Thank you so much, Dr. Owen. ท่านผู้เกียรติคะลำดับต่อไปนะคะจะเป็น Special Talk อีกหัวข้อหนึ่งค่ะจะมาในหัวข้อการส่งเสริมข้อกำหนดโตเกียวการส่งเสริมข้อกำหนดโตเกียวและมาตรการที่ไม่ใช่การคุมขังในต่างประเทศโดยผู้แทนจากสถาบันการป้องกันอาชญากรรมและการปฏิบัติต่อผู้กระทำผิดของสหประชาชาติภาคพื้นเอเชียและตะวันออกไกลหรือยูนาเฟค่ะซึ่งได้รับเกียรติอย่างสูงจากผู้เชี่ยวชาญคุณทาคุยะ ฟุรุฮาชิผู้แทนจากยูนาเฟค่ะ
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the presentation from Professor Takuya Furuhashi, professor from the United Nations Asia and Far East Institute, or UNAFE, who will deliver a talk on the Tokyo rules and non-custodial measures across the world. Professor Furuhashi, please, you have the floor.
Wow. Thank you so much. There are lots of first time in here, this fantastic stage and this smart mic. This is my first time. Is that okay to, yeah, thank you so much. There are lots of things named Tokyo something in my country. That picture is one of them, this picture. And that bottom left guys, that's my kids. But only one problem, they are looking at a totally different direction. Hey, that is here. But this father is now feeling their love and their attention. Thank you so much. Before getting inside of the Tokyo rules, what's Tokyo rules, I would like to introduce one short story. Which is actually about Japanese noodle. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, Japanese noodle. Long time ago, in a certain country, one king decided, oh, I really want to get the noodle competition in this country. Hey, let's get the participants. And finally, two groups came up. One group, this is a really happy group, comes from really positive environment region. Another one comes from really a little bit disorganized and unhappy group. And these two groups got fighting each other in this noodle. But king gave them some limitation. Oh, sorry. Okay, you need to use this big pot for boiling noodle. And also, 1 meter length chopsticks, you need to use, everybody, no exception. Okay, they get started, and what happened? What happened after a meanwhile? Okay, in positive group, they really enjoy to eat noodle. Everybody really enjoyed. Oh, that's really nice. oh, this is royal noodle. Wow, that's nice. On the other hand, negative group, they got fighting. Always fighting, punching, kicking, pushing each other. What's the difference? What's the difference? Does anybody get some idea or inspiration? Okay. The positive group, that group's members always try to give the noodle to another person using 1 meter chopstick. That's nice, that's cool. Everybody do that, so everybody enjoy noodle. However, the negative group members try to eat themselves. That's why hit the elbow, hey, what's that? And punch each other. That happens. I learned a lot from this story, and I felt the importance of inclusive society from this story. And Tokyo rules have huge possibility to promote inclusive society, I believe. That's why I took this story at the beginning. Okay, what's Tokyo rules? Tokyo rules is non-custodial measures, as you learned a lot already, and established in 1990, almost 30 years ago. Drafted at UNIFE Tokyo, that's why it calls Tokyo rules. Cover all types of non-custodial measures throughout the process of criminal justice. This is really important. Not only community supervision, not only parole supervision, not only that kind of thing. Not only post-sentencing, prosecution, police, trial stage, it covers. And also emphasize the importance of public participation, and also the importance of volunteers. I just brought these materials on that UNIFE booth, but I checked before lunchtime, everything gone. So, yeah, thank you so much for your interest. This is the basic structure of Tokyo rules: arrest here, arrest here. And that is the gate of the prison. Pre-trial stage, they can get non-custodial measures, and also this police prosecution mainly. And also trial stage, mainly at the court. And after sentencing, this is probably some kind of parole supervision, and also early release, especially elderly and disabled, handicapped offenders. And also maybe conditioning release. And public participation and the volunteers cover whole process of criminal justice. This is the simple structure of Tokyo rules. Okay, let's go to the brief history of United Nations standard norms for treatment of treatment of offenders. This is one of the first regulations, SMF for prisoners, which was established in 1955 at the first United Nations Congress, Switzerland, or Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, we set the regulation inside of prison. What about non-custodial measures? That's why Tokyo rules came up, 1990. Okay, it looks really nice, but we have some still huge missing piece in this process, in this regulation. That's why Bangkok rules came up. Okay, that looks really nice. Okay, they cover gender-specific things as well. And okay, oh yeah, recently maybe SMR for prisoners need to be revised. Then Mandela rules came up. Probably next slide inspire you something, maybe. Wow. Everything inside of the Thai national flag. Wow, that's my idea. Thank you. No, keep going. Okay, let's talk about the female offenders. You already talked about female offenders, so I just introduced some elements of it. Drug dependency, This is really one of the most prominent things. And also, when I think about the female offenders, I always consider what's the exact difference between female and male. Okay, being pregnant and giving birth, and also the breastfeeding. That's specific privilege for female offenders, and also sometimes that can be the problematic issues, especially incarceration. Eating disorder, this is really, really common in Japanese prison. I'm not sure in your countries, though. And this is the financial things. It's actually not so easy to get the daytime, stable, appropriate job for female offenders in Japan. And this is the victimization and domestic violence and child abuse, that kind of thing, traumatized experience, and also adverse childhood experience. And sometimes this experience brings the complicated problem related to the drug addiction and also the eating disorders. I frequently watched. Well, yeah, does the incarceration actually need? That's my question. And I brought 3 ideas. Taking non-custodial measures as much as possible. Yeah, I think so. And I believe so. But, of course, I know some offenders really need to be incarcerated and take a long time, and get the correctional education, and also including the medical support, something like that. Second point, promoting trauma-informed approach, as I mentioned before, previous slide. Working with community and local expert. In Japan, Japanese female prison recently just started after Bangkok rules. This getting the participation of the local expert gives the lots of impact on our prison management, positive impact, actually. That's why I took this idea. Okay, I went to this halfway house at the end of last month, and their staff, I took this picture, actually, and it's really small though. All of them are smiling, and that guy is director, and the social worker, care worker, psychiatric social worker, and medical nurse working together. This is really nice. And also, they are doing lots of things. Drug education. This is the kind of specific supporting program of the recover the family relationship. The facility invite the family member. The family member come to the facility and get the meeting all together. That's really nice. And the cooking school. And also this is inside of their house, inside of their room. Okay, this is the halfway house. And also, I would like to introduce this organization. I know some of you already know the volunteer probation officer system in Japan. That's really prominent and really common, not only inside Japan. But we have another one, Women's Association for Rehabilitation Aid. Actually, the total number of that association is tremendous. 150,000 members working in the community with volunteer probation officer and also offshore probation officers. They know community. They know what's happening in the community. Even inside, really, really detailed. And this is the picture. They are providing a meal in the halfway house. That frequently happen in several areas. And this is for not only for the offenders, for general public. They provide the care for the mother, how to raise the children, how to care the baby, that types of things. And also this is the lecture for kids. The Women's Association members provide the lecture because they know how to prevent the crime at the early timings, and also what they need, they know what they need, what young delinquents need to get some kind of support. That's why they are doing. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about this banking. Maybe, I hope some of you already know. Of course, Japanese people, officers, know this banking. Name is Hogo-chan. Hogo-chan has a really complicated story, in fact, and he's the mascot, really popular mascot in Japanese rehabilitation system. Let me show you his story, his delinquent story. I used to be delinquent, and I did many bad things. That's his confession. But thank you to my volunteer probation officer, Mr. Ware. Oh yeah, he's smoking on the street, right? With spiky hair. But volunteer probation officer, thank you. He got something really important things from volunteer probation officer. And also my cooperative employer, Mr. Seal. Hey, nice, thank you. Mr. Seal gave him the opportunity to work and also gave him the opportunity to participate in the community. Then I became a rehabilitated penguin. Oh, nice smile. That's the story of this penguin. And yeah, this is really official cartoon. Actually, I got this cartoon from the headquarters of Ministry of Justice. Yeah, this is really official one. And now, Hogo-chan is so popular in Japanese community. Maybe some of you, yeah, that's a good story, but not so many community people recognize that penguin, right? But I would like to show you the evidence. Hogo-chan everywhere. Hogo-chan everywhere. The t-shirts, on the t-shirts at the Summer Dancing Festival, and also the studio, and also broadcasting company. And this picture is actually inside of the Unified Training at the room of the Director General of Japanese Rehabilitation Bureau. Kids event, inside of a bus with elderly people, or even in such looks really formal conference, Hogo-chan there. And also, we have supportive network, really strong one. Ms. Nakamoto, I love her, and I love her activities. She was a former volunteer probation officer, and right now, the member of Women's Association. And also, she has been providing the meal to the community kids more than 30 years. More than 30 years. I think that's a real support for them in the community. That's volunteer. I got a phone call with her a little bit before coming here, and I asked her, is that okay to introduce your activity and yourself to international friends? She said, of course, of course. Thank you so much. Please say hello to everybody, every friends. These guys are former juvenile training school residents. Now they own their own NGO, non-governmental organization, to support ex-offenders, to support offenders and delinquent kids. These two persons get the network, and they had a really big meeting. And I'm in here this August. That's really recently happened. And they get network, strong network. Ms. Nakamoto, working in Hiroshima. He lived in Nagoya, it's very center of Japan. He lived in Osaka. A really huge network happened and still expanding. There's lots of energy and passionate, so still expanding. So I really look forward to their future activities, and I would like to contribute to them. This is the Unified activities in 2015, 25th anniversary of Tokyo Rules. Probably all of you know somebody, right? In that, we had that meeting in Unify Building, 2015, and we add the report, summary report on Unify website. So please check it if you are interested in Tokyo Rule and what's happening in recent world. Okay, this is almost my last story. I love this temple, Horyoji Temple. This is the oldest temple in Japan, almost the oldest temple in Japan. 40 kilometers south from central Kyoto, Nara Prefecture has this old temple. And this building was established more than 1,300 years ago. This is a long time ago. And oldest wood-made building in this planet. That's really, really nice. Still standing there. And the Tokyo Sky Tree, this is really brand new, tall tower. 20 times more taller than maybe Horyoji Temple, really tall one. That is the tallest tower at that time, 2012, tallest tower in this planet. Actually, this Tokyo Sky Tree, the architect of Tokyo Sky Tree learned a lot from this old temple structure. This is a core pillar, the center pole. Okay, this core pillar do really good job to support the building when natural disaster happened. For example, earthquake, this is the most frequently happened in Japan. They support the structure to prevent falling down. Then the Tokyo Sky, they decide, okay, we're gonna have this concept in Tokyo Sky Tree as well, beyond the really more than 1,000 years histories. Then I thought the Tokyo rules can be the core pillar for building inclusive societies and social happiness and well-being. In addition, collaboration with the Bangkok rules made it more stable and brighter. Just like this. It's small, really small though. Do like this. Oh, Bangkok is coming up. Like this. Much more brighter. This is my last slide. I really want to share these words all of you. Okay, this is a really nice one. The medical teacher tells. The normal teacher just say something in front of the public, in front of the people, in front of the student, in front of offenders. Okay, next. The good teacher explains. Good teacher gives us the reason of that, why that happened. Okay, that's understandable. Next one. Superior teacher demonstrate, do it something in front of them. That's good teacher. This word has one more additional line at the bottom. The great teacher something. Please think about that. Great teacher what? Great teacher what? Just there, explain, demonstrate what's coming up. Great teacher inspires. Put the fire in the heart of the children, heart of the student, heart of the offenders. That's Gamuranjai. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Fukuhashi, for this impressive and inspiring
Definitely.
presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again for a comprehensive overlook of what the Tokyo Rule is. ในช่วงนี้นะคะหลังจากที่เราได้เห็นภาพใหญ่ของหลักการเชิง non-custodial measures กันไปแล้วนะคะหลังจากนี้เราจะมาเข้าช่วงเสวนาที่ลงรายละเอียดกันค่ะลงรายละเอียดว่าแล้วในประเทศไทยล่ะเราทำอะไรกับเรื่องเหล่านี้ได้บ้างมาตรการเหล่านี้ใช้ได้มากน้อยเพียงไรนะคะแต่ว่าก่อนอื่นเดี๋ยวเราจะให้ทุกท่านได้พักเบรกไวๆสักประมาณ10 นาทีนะคะเราจะกลับมาที่ห้องนี้กันในเวลาประมาณบ่าย 2:35 นาทีนะคะให้เข้าห้องน้ำดื่มน้ำดื่มชากาแฟนะคะแล้วเดี๋ยวเรา